Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and the notification button so that you will be notified whenever there is a new video. Alright, so let's start. Today we are going to have ratio and proportion. This is really important before we can actually discuss the different types of variations. When we say ratio and proportion, this is a great way of comparing two or more quantities. Right? Let's start with the ratio. Ratio is a comparison of two numbers with the same units or different units of the same kind. So what do you mean by that? We are just comparing two numbers, but what is the operation involved? The operation involved is division. Again, the operation involved is division because it is obtained by dividing the first number by the second number. So it means, okay, so ratio is also the same as fraction and dividing two quantities or two numbers. So these are the ways of writing. First is A is to B. Okay, so this is the classical way of writing it with the use of colon. Then sentence form A is to B, and then fraction form A over B, or you can also write it as A divided by B. They are just the same. Just remember that B must not be equal to 0 because when we are talking about fraction, if the denominator is 0, the fraction or the ratio will be undefined. Example 1.1. Simplify the ratio 2 feet is to 3 inches. Okay, so before you can actually simplify, you have to check whether the units are similar or not. If they are similar, there's no problem with that. You can directly simplify. But if they are not similar, you have to make them first similar units. So in this case, we are talking about foot and inch. So it means they are not similar, but they are of the same kind. They are both talking about length. Now, the conversion is 1 foot equals 12 inches. So we have to convert the higher unit to the smaller unit. And based on what you are seeing, the higher unit is foot. So therefore, we will be converting 2 feet to inches. So what is the equivalent now of 2 feet to inches? Alright, so we will be converting it first to inches. Alright, so for every 1 foot, okay, the equivalent of that is 12 inches. Alright, so you need to multiply 2 times 12, so that will be the equivalent of foot to inch. So 2 times 12 is 24 inches. So in that case, we can now simplify the ratio 2 feet is to 3 inches. So we are going to write it now as 24 inches is to 3 inches. And then get the GCF. So the GCF is 3. And then make it a divisor of the first quantity and the second quantity. So 24 inches divided by 3 is 8 inches. While 3 divided by 3 is 1 inch. So the first thing that we have to do is, if the units are not similar, you have to make them similar for as long as the units are of the same kind. Next is, after you have converted the higher unit to the smaller unit, please make sure that get the GCF of the two quantities so that you can simplify it in its lowest term. So in this manner, our answer will be 8 inches is to 1 inch. Next, example 1.2. Divide the number 48 into two parts such that they are in the ratio 3 is to 5. Right? So how are we going to do that? First, we have to represent, or we have to analyze this one. So we need to divide 48, but it's not 50-50. Rather, it is in the ratio of 3 is to 5. It means the first part is smaller than the second part. First things first, we have to represent. So let 3x be the first part, and then 5x be the second part. Alright? Next. Okay, so the idea here is that if we are going to add the two parts, okay, we will be getting 48. So in solving, first is we have to represent, second is we have to construct our equation, and third, that's the time that you can solve and get the final answer. So in this case, if we will be adding 3x plus 5x, we will be getting 48. This is now our equation. Then the next thing, let us simplify and solve. So 3x plus 5x, they are similar terms, so you can combine. So 3x plus 5x is equal to 8x equals 48. Then to solve for the value of x, isolate it using the multiplication property of equality. Divide both sides by 8. So if you will be dividing 8 here, you have to also do it on the other side. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. This will be x equals, what is 48 divided by 8? 6. So the value of x is 6. But that's not yet the final answer. The question is, we have to get the first and the second numbers. So let's have the first number or first part. For the first part, we will be using 3x, and the value of x that we got is 6. So 3 times 6 is 18. And then let's have the second part. So for the second part, okay, so it is 5x. The value of x is 6. So 5 times 6 equals, alright, so what is the answer? 30. So if you will be adding 18 plus 30, you will be getting 48. So therefore, our answers are correct. So the two parts are 18 and 30. As simple as that. Alright? So what are the steps in solving? First is represent, second is create your equation, and then third is solve so that you will be getting the final answer. Next, example 1.3. Mark, Marie, and Marvin divided 1,000 Philippine pesos among themselves in the ratio of 5:3:2, respectively. How much did each of them receive? So the idea here is there's 1,000 pesos and then it will be divided to Mark, Marie, and Marvin. But it's not actually equal in equal parts. So it is in the ratio of 5:3:2. So next is the same as the previous example. We have to represent. Let 5x be the part of Mark. Then let 3x be the part of Marie. And then we have to let 2x be the part of Marvin. Same idea as the previous example. If you will be adding the 3, you will be getting 1,000 pesos. So it's 5x plus 3x plus 2x equals 1,000. This will be now our equation, and the unit of measurement is Philippine pesos. So 5x plus 3x plus 2x is equal to 10x equals 1,000. Then divide both sides by 10. 10 divided by 10 here will be 1. X equals 100 because 1,000 divided by 10 is 100. That's just the value of x, but we still need to solve for the part of Mark. So for the part of Mark, it is 5x and the value of x is 100. So 5 times 100 is equal to 500. Then for the part of Marie, okay, so we have 3x. Alright, so 100 is the value of x. So 3 times 100 is 300. Then let's have the part of Marvin. So for the part of Marvin, it is only 2 times 2x, and the value of x is 100. Substitute. So 2 times 100 is equal to 200. Alright, so if you will be checking 500 plus 300 plus 200, you will be getting 1,000. So these are our final answers. So 500 pesos for Mark, then 300 pesos for Marie, and then 200 pesos for Marvin. So these are our answers. Alright, so that's the idea of ratio. We are comparing two or more quantities. Alright, next, let's proceed to proportion. What is proportion? Proportion is a statement indicating the equality of two ratios. So if A is to B and C is to D are two equivalent ratios, then we can say that A is to B is equal to C is to D. We are indicating here that two ratios are equal. Alright, so the inner quantities are what we call the means, and then the outer quantities are what we call the extremes. So the idea is that if they are written in fraction form, okay, so if the arrow is going up, okay, these are what we call the means. And if the arrow is going down, these are what we call the extremes. Now, let's have fundamental principle of proportion. So this is being used so that we can solve one of the unknown quantities. So in any proportion, the product of the means is equal to the product of extremes. So just like what we are seeing a while ago, okay, so we identified the means and extremes. So what are we going to do now is to multiply the means and then multiply the extremes. You will be getting a result of AD equals BC. Now, it is also the idea of cross multiplying. So in that case, if one is missing, you can already solve using the fundamental principle of proportion. Let's have example 1.4. So what is the value of n in the proportion 4 is to n equals 3 is to 5. So we just need to multiply the means and the extremes. Okay, so either of the two. Okay, so you can actually multiply first the means, extremes, and vice versa. So n times 3 is 3n, and then 4 times 5 is 20. Alright, so and then divide both sides by 3 by applying the multiplication property of equality. So your answer will be 20 over 3, or the mixed form of this is 6 and 2/3, or you can also convert this into the approximate decimal value. So the approximate decimal value is 6.67. Okay, so it depends on what is required or what is the answer that your professor is asking you to write. So either of the three is correct. Next, example 1.5. Solve for the proportion x plus 1 is to 2x minus 1 equals 2 is to 3. So same thing, you will be multiplying the means. You will also be multiplying the extremes. So let's try starting first with the extremes. So x plus 1 times 3, it will be written like this. X plus 1 times 3 equals 2x minus 1 times 2. Alright? Next, okay, next thing that we have to do is to simplify. So you will distribute the monomial to the binomial. So 3 times x is 3x, and then 3 times 1 is 3. Same thing here. So 2 times 2x and 2 times negative 1. 2 times 2x is 4x, and then 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Then we need to combine the similar terms by applying addition property of equality. So 3x, the opposite of 4x is negative 4x, and then negative 2, the opposite of 3 is negative 3. Then combine 3 minus 4x, it's x, or negative x rather. Then negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Divide both sides by negative 1 because you cannot actually make negative 5 as the final answer because there is still negative 1 beside x as the coefficient. So x will be equal to positive 5. This will be the value of x. Next, example 1.6. A recipe needs 2.5 cups of flour for every 3/4 cup of sugar. If 4 cups of flour are used, how much sugar is needed? So first things first, we have to make our representation so that we can easily solve for this. Okay? So let's write the first ratio. The first ratio is that for every 2.5 or 2.5 cups of flour, the chef will be using 3/4 is to 3/4 cup of sugar. And then for every 4 cups of flour, the chef will be using, that is unknown. We can now represent the unknown as any letter in the English alphabet except O. Okay, so we can represent sugar as X. Next, so let's put X here. Then the next thing is we will multiply the means, we will multiply the extremes. So next, we have 2.5 times x is, we can actually convert it into decimal for us to easily solve it using your calculators later on. So 2.5x, and then here 3/4 times 4. So it's 3/4 times 4. So 3/4 times 4, you can actually cancel. This what will remain is 3 equals 2.5. Then divide both sides by 2.5. So what will be the answer? Okay, so it is 1.2. The value of x is 1.2, or you can actually convert this to decimal. Okay, so it is 6/5 cups of sugar. Alright, so that will be our answer. First, represent. Second, make your equation. And then third, solve and finalize. Next, example 1.7, find the values of x and y in the proportion 2:3:5 equals x is to y is to 6. If your proportion goes like this, okay, you have to actually solve first for the constant of proportionality for you to be guided on how you can solve for the values of x and y. So this this value of k, or the constant of proportionality, will serve as, okay, the key for us to solve for x and y. So k is the constant of proportionality. Alright, next. Okay, so we will be solving now for x and y. But before that, we will be equating 2 to x, 3 to y, and then 5 to 6 with the constant of proportionality. First is 2 is proportional to k times x, and then 3 is proportional to k times y, and then 5 is proportional to k times 6. So the first thing that we have to do before we can solve x and y, we have to solve for the value of k. So in solving for the value of k, remember that there must be only one variable that is unknown. So which among the three equations has only one variable which is unknown? So it's the third equation. So in this manner, we will be using the third equation in solving for k. So it is 5 equals k times 6. Just simply divide both sides by 6 so that you can get the value of k. So divide both sides by 6. So therefore, the answer is 5/6. This is just the value of k. We're not yet done. First is we will be solving for x using this. Okay. Alright, so 2 equals k times x. Then substitute the value of k, which is 5/6. Okay, so 5/6 times x. Alright, then divide both sides by 5/6. Now we are dividing fractions. So therefore, this is x equals 2. When dividing fraction, get the reciprocal of the divisor and then proceed to multiplication. The reciprocal of 5/6 is 6/5. Therefore, 2 times 6 is 12/5. That is the value of x. Now let's proceed to the value of y. So you can still convert this into decimal. So 12 divided by 5 is equal to 2.4. So you can also write or 2.4. They are just the same. Next, let us solve for y. Alright, so using the second equation, of course. So 3 equals k times y. Then we will be substituting the value of k. So 3 equals 5/6 times y. Same thing, we will be dividing both sides by 5/6. Alright, so y will be equal to 3 times the reciprocal of 5/6, which is 6/5. So 3 times 6 is 18/5, and still you can convert this to fraction. Oh, decimal rather. So the answer here is 18/5 or 3.6. So these are our answers. The value of x is 12/5 or 2.4, and the value of y is 18/5 or 3.6. Next, last example under proportion. Example 1.8. The length, width, and the height of the box for a toy are in the ratio 7:3:2. A larger version of the toy requires a box with a width of 10 inches. What must be the length and the height of the required box? So it's the same as the previous example, but it's now more situational than the other. Alright, so we are talking about two boxes that are proportional. Alright, so first things first, we have to write our proportion. So we have 7 is to 3 is to 2. Remember that this is the length, this is the width, and this is the height. Equals, okay, so according to the problem, in the larger version of the toy requires the box with the width of 10 inches. Okay, so what are missing? What are the unknown values? We need to find for the values of length and height. So therefore, length is unknown but width is there, which is 10 inches, is to the height. Alright, so this will be now our proportion. We will be solving for length and the height. Same thing, we will be needing the aid of the constant of proportionality to solve for the length and the height. Alright, so we will be equating now 7 equals K times L. Then 3 equals K times 10. And then 2 equals K times H. So the first thing that we need to solve is the value of K. So in solving for the value of K, we have to use the equation with only one unknown value, which is the equation number 2. 3 equals K times 10. Then divide both sides by 10. Your K will be equal to 3 over 10. So that is just the value of K. We're not yet done. Alright, so we can now solve for the length. So for the length, we will be using the first equation, 7 equals K times L, where the value of K is 3 over 10. Substitute 7 equals 3 over 10 times the length. Then divide both sides by 3 over 10. So same thing, the length will be equal to 7 times the reciprocal of 3 over 10, which is 10 over 3. Right? So multiply. 7 times 10 is 70 over 3, or you can actually get the decimal value of this, the approximate decimal value. 70 divided by 3 will be equal to 23.33. This is a repeating decimal, inches. So this will be now the length. Now let's proceed to the height. Let's solve for the height using the third equation. So 2 equals K times H. Then substitute the value of K, which is 3 over 10. Then divide both sides by 3 over 10. So this will be 1. H will be equal to 2 times the reciprocal of 3/10, which is 10 over 3. H will be 2 times 10, which is 20 over 3, or the decimal value. 20 divided by 3 is 6.67 inches. Alright, so these are our answers now. So for the length, we have 70 over 3 or 23.33 inches. And for the height, we have 20 over 3 or 6.67 inches. Alright, so that's it. As easy as that. We're now done with the ratio and proportion. Alright. So thank you for listening, or thank you for watching rather. Then I do hope that you have learned a lot. So don't forget to subscribe and then push the notification button for more videos. Thank you so much.